I'm all in. Those warp elements mixed in the lab, combined powerful.
Golden Show. It's King Midas certified. Golden.
Basketball. Gordon's still up on the Jones. One game. So let's get it in. Golden Debate Show. LMONMod.com. Like, comment, share, down.
Fuck this guy.
Oh, we're about to get it in, alright.
Fuck you guys.
The weather's picking up, and so are we.
Fatality.
Because I like to know what I'm talking about before I speak.
Fuck this guy. Fuck you guys.
Cut. Later show. Go to LMONMod.com and check it out.
Fatality. Fuck this guy. Fuck you guys.
Are y'all ready? Because I know I am. Golden Show. Golden Debate Show. LMONMod.com. Strike up the bands.
Fatality.
The golden debate show. Yeah, the golden debate show. Golden show, wow. Golden debate show. We gon' talk about this, talk about the golden debate show. Yeah, the golden debate show. Golden show, wow. Golden debate show. We gon' talk about this, talk about First tip is pretty interesting to break down a hungry man, what the contents of this fucking fast food.
I've got a hungry man. It's
fast food diner type fucking microwave.
It's billed as one of the better ways to satisfy your craving. That's a registered trademark. And I'm not sure what makes it so crave-worthy, why people would crave it. But I'm going to take a look at the ingredients and see if I can figure it out. It's got virtually every food group represented. You've got some type of meat slab. I don't know what's in the gravy. You got mashed potatoes. It's another type of vegetable. There's a lot of vegetables right there.
Lots of vegetables.
Also some vegetables here.
Tons of vegetables and a meat slab. This was $2.22, by the way.
This is a really good vegetable value.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of vegetables in that gravy too. Let's find out.
What size is that font? I think that's like a size 4 point font.
Don't look over here.
So let's just deal first of all with the mashed potatoes. They've got reconstituted potatoes containing mono and diglycerides, sodium acid, pyrophosphate, citric acid, which we now know can come from a mercury cell chloralkali plant, margarine, which is a partially hydrogenated soybean oil with TBHQ and citric acid as preservatives, also water and mono and diglycerides with extra BHT and more citric acid. So we have at least 3 sources of citric acid just in the mashed potatoes. We've got TBHQ and BHT, which those are antioxidants. It doesn't matter if they've been linked potentially to cancer in lab studies, or if they're just really questionable preservatives, or if this is a mummy food. BHT and TBHQ, that's antioxidants, baby. Soybean oil almost certainly comes from genetically modified soy, but hardly matters because it's partially hydrogenated, which really brings out the trans fat. Really brings out the trans fat and everything, which is just horrible for you. It can disrupt your hormones and cause heart attacks.
They've banned that in like all these other countries.
I thought it was now required to show how many trans fats are in a food. Now this Hungry Man meal has more than half of your recommended daily fat and 10 grams of your saturated fat, right at half. This is half. All right, so we're not even actually done with the mashed potatoes. I need to stay on subject. These mashed potatoes have beta carotene, so we know that's good. Beta carotene is not for nutrition; it's for color. It comes from corn oil and tocopherol, so it's not like carrot beta-carotene.
No, it's just synthetic vitamins.
It does have vitamin A palmitate, dried dairy blend with whey, calcium, caseinate, salt, and water.
Dried dairy blend. That sounds delicious.
So that's your mashed potatoes. Lots of antioxidants, DHT, TBHQ. All right, let's move on to the cooked meatloaf patty. What kind of meat? We'll find out, but that's a slab of meat right there. Beef and pork, water, seasoning, and then you got breadcrumbs in there, which have enriched bleached wheat flour with niacin, reduced iron, thiamine, mononitrate, riboflavin, folic acid, all of which are synthetic derivatives that they learn to shove into foods. It doesn't matter how easily they're absorbed by the body, or if they're a nutritious type of these vitamins and minerals. They're just required by law, so they find ways to blend them in there to that enriched wheat or enriched flour or whatever kind of bread thing it is. Now, the cooked meatloaf patty on top of the beef and pork includes salt, durum flour, vegetable oil shortening. Now, that's good. It comes from soybean. That's genetically modified almost for sure. There's no non-GMO seal on here. Organic is definitely not on this label. Vegetable oil shortening, soybean leavening with sodium bicarbonate, that's baking soda. Sodium acid pyrophosphate, that's a mystery to me. Monocalcium phosphate, don't really know what that is. Dextrose, really not that bad, but it's probably from genetically modified corn. Yeast, that's a code word for monosodium glutamate. It's a busted up protein, so they could get out the free glutamate. It's got spice extractive. There's a comma there. Yeast, comma, spice extractive. Extractive. Maybe it has an accent mark. I don't know. It's got maltodextrin, which is a different form of what corn sugar, right?
I just want to point out this video is already
Tonight,
at like 5.5
a new report shows that the NSA is changing people's search habits. Then, reports of a Georgia officer pulling a gun on fifth graders. And Michigan police use military hardware to track phone calls. That's next on the InfoWars Nightly News.
The new service will be sucking black boots as they kick you in the face and then taking your shirt off when they shoot you in the chest. That'll be the patriotic duty.
Well, thought crime is here. 1 week they're banning the word bossy, and another week they're banning questions altogether. At least that's when you're asking tough questions of authoritarians. This time it's a Connecticut student. He was suspended for asking a governor questions about gun control during an appearance at a public forum. The student, Nicholas Saucier, approached Democratic Governor Dannel Malloy after a campus event at his community college. He asked him to address his support for gun control legislation, which Saucier claims has negatively impacted his ammunition manufacturing business. Now, as this video shows, Saucier was polite and courteous and was simply asking legitimate questions of his elected representative. The governor, of course, declined to comment, got in a car, and drove off. But the principal of the community college is seen trying to push Saucier away from the governor before calling campus police, claiming that he verbally attacked the governor. That's right. When you ask tough questions now, you are verbally attacking people. Now, Saucier was then charged with harassment and making threats, among other violations of the college's conduct policy. The college refused to review the video evidence of the incident, and he was suspended on the grounds that his continued presence at the school would present a danger to the persons, property, and/or academic process of the college. Meanwhile, this is the academic process that violated his rights to due process by failing to allow him to show the video in his trial there at the college that proved that he was just exercising his First Amendment right. He wasn't harassing the governor. He was being polite and respectful, and they would not allow that to be shown. So much for academic process there. So not only did this college violate his First Amendment rights, but they violated his rights to due process, all because he was asking tough questions of his elected representative. So isn't this what colleges are supposed to be teaching students, educating them on how public policy works and how to engage in democracy? But no, not anymore. Not when your questions are the tough real questions for authoritarians, when they counter the agenda of the establishment, then you are being verbally abusive. But it's not just questions about the Second Amendment that are in danger. It's the entire Second Amendment itself that could be in jeopardy. In fact, the entire U.S. Constitution could be up for review after Michigan became the 34th state to vote in favor of a constitutional convention. It satisfies a rule that states America's founding document can be amended if 2/3 of state legislatures approve the measure. Now, while some would welcome the opportunity to amend the Constitution to institute fiscal conservatism, others fear the move could easily be hijacked to negate parts of the document that protect fundamental liberties, such as the right to bear arms and freedom of speech. Now, of course, this would be an unprecedented move to amend the Constitution, and we already can see the writing on the wall. We already see that they are really doubling down on doing away with the Second Amendment, or at least amending it to say that only the militia can have guns and that you and I do not have the right, even though it's currently our Second Amendment right. It shall not be infringed, but they're going to do away with that. They want to amend the First Amendment and say who's a journalist, who isn't a journalist. We can see the writing on the wall, so of course this would be an unprecedented move. We'll have to stay tuned to see what happens with this constitutional convention.
I thought about was that if I could figure out how to make one cell work, I could figure out how to make them all work. And so I bought a bunch of cellular biology books, which I hadn't read in 30 years or so, and began to read through them. Excuse me. So one of the things that jumped out off the pages for me for some reason was that each book would either have a sentence or even a page about the fact that cells are designed to run in a environment of a pH of 7.35 to 7.45. And I didn't really understand exactly what that meant. I remember that pH was acid-base balance, but that's about all I could remember. So I began to look at pH and discovered that pH is simply the measurement of voltage in a solution. So if you think about voltage in a wire, like a copper wire that brings voltage to a light bulb, the light switch is either on or off. But in a solution like water, you have an option of it being an electron donor or an electron stealer. And so you use a sophisticated voltmeter that will measure the voltage of a solution and will tell you if it's an electron donor or an electron stealer. And then, by convention, you convert that voltage measurement to a logarithmic scale that goes from 1 to 14. So basically, a pH of 0 is a synonym for plus 400 millivolts of electron stealer, and a pH of 14 is a synonym of a voltage of minus 400 millivolts, minus meaning electron donor. So once I began to realize that pH was really just a measurement of voltage, then it began to make sense, because a pH of 7.35 is a synonym to minus 20 millivolts, and 7.45 is a synonym of minus 25 millivolts. So now it began to make sense. Cells have to have electrons or voltage in order to work. And that made perfect sense to me. So people sometimes get confused, by the way, because if you put an electrode inside of a cell and outside of the cell and measure across the cell membrane, you'll get somewhere around minus 90 millivolts. But the environment or the pH of the extracellular fluid in which all the cells operate is that 7.35 to 7.45, or minus 20 to minus 25 millivolts. So the next order of business for me was to figure out, okay, how do I measure it? So I began to look for that answer and found that a Japanese chap named Nakatani had become the first person to use modern electronics to measure acupuncture meridians, and he published his work in 1951. A German named Reinhold Voll published his similar work the following year, 1952. So I simply got Dr. Nakatani's rather crude, by modern standards, instrumentation and began to measure things and realized that my brain was running between 2 and 4 millivolts when it needed to be at 25 millivolts, and therefore I understood why it didn't work.
Well, that's, that term is a sequential. And what a sequential is a being that is already aware of the incarnation process. And it's actually become what we just call a professional reincarnator. And what this is about is that obviously there is a passing, especially in any of the cultures, the ancient cultures, a passing of the ka or the ba of the elder soul or the gentry. And this is, of course, if you look at the word gentry, you get gen meaning a spirit tree, and you get it there just if you want to make it very simple, but the closest spirit to the origin of the tree. And so you have to realize that everyone has continuously branched out from some point. And so the closer ones that are to that point are supposed to have a deeper connection with the origin point. So this passing of the ka or the ba, which gives us the word kaba, is what a sequential is involved in, because once they leave the plane, first of all, they're already professional reincarnators, so they already know how to travel on the spiritual plane. Generally, you can't always say that the vessel that they're inhabiting next belong to another spirit, because the spirit is what animates the vessel. So a master would go into a womb and inseminate and then come out as that child, and then once getting to the age of knowing, the point of recollection, then they would animate that child, and then the child will be able to choose things that the master had before to authenticate that this process had completed itself. And so this is what you're dealing with. This is professional reincarnation. And now there is another phenomenon, though. I won't omit that there are spirits that can inhabit another vessel, several spirits that can inhabit a vessel at the same time. And this generally is called possession. But we need to understand what the difference between a spirit and a soul is, because a spirit does actually denote a specific kind of being, while a soul, being used in the plural, souls, is not correct. There is no plural in soul. Soul means one. That's it. There's no plural. So what a spirit is a disincarnate being, meaning a being that does not have a body, that still hasn't come into the realization that all is self, or that there is a connectivity of everything collected, and that's on the other side of the sun. So this being wanders around in one of the more ethereal vehicles in this identity known as, for most people, a spirit, but there was a whole classification of different kind of beings that resided on the astral plane. And this, of course, comes in modern texts as dukes and hags and these different kinds of astral energies, but the only thing they really are human beings that have left the planet multiple times, still staying in a cycle, and now they're just not on one of the physical planes or 3D planes anymore.
Hey guys, Dapu7, and it looks as though we have another victory taking place, this time New York. This isn't the exact route I would want to go. I'd want to see everyone stand up and fight for the guns that they have right now instead of having to modify them. But when you have to do things and take extreme measures here, it's good to see that there's guys out there making moves. Black Rain Ordnance has released a New York compliant AR-15.
I do the Lorentz forces, and they're also hydrided. And so then after the pulse comes, they'll expand due to the hydriding. So they kind of actually move during the pulsing. They move quite a bit. And that's what tends to make that wire and then the all cauliflower structure. So these are the foils, these are the rates, these are the last two samples we ran, which were about a picocurie per hour. And those are nickel
County School District in Tennessee has allowed people to pass out Christian literature at 3 of their elementary schools. As a result, the ACLU and an atheist organization fought for the right to do the exact same. And surprisingly, they won, which is not a good thing. And the reason why I say that is because it's probably a really bad idea to pass out any type of literature like that at a public school. Now, just to be 100% specific, they are not allowed to hand the literature to each student, but they are allowed to leave the literature at the school, so if a student does find it appealing, he or she can pick it up and read it. Keep in mind, again, this is an elementary school, or 3 elementary schools within this district.
So I'm split on this. Obviously, it's unconstitutional, so I'm going to have to vote no, right? That's clear enough. You're right about that, Anna. On the other hand, I love the idea of a free marketplace of ideas. You want to put the Bible and I'll put up facts? Let's have at it, Hoss. If the Christians think they're going to win on that, I wish you good luck.
Right. And so, look, I consider myself atheist, and I agree with their message, but I don't want them to pass out the literature on campus. I certainly don't want Christian literature, Jewish literature, I don't care, any religion.
Being ambitious, but being ambitious in a creative way with baby steps that we learn from that allow us to do a better job the next time and a better job the time after that.
This means more research, because we know the next time we have a report, and the next time we have a report, and the next time. This is scam. What a scam. And by the way, the producers of An Inconvenient Truth are now looking at a sequel. Everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. This is now going to be about mitigation. Like, oh, well, it's too bad. We can't really do anything about it, but, now we have to be prepared for it. And that'll cost you at least $100 billion in research. This is what was not reported in this report. In fact, it was removed from so you have the summary for, I think they call it policymakers or some bullshit, which basically means, hey, press, read this. The report is so complicated and convoluted. Just read the summary. And what they pulled out of the summary, which is in the report, is there's at least $100 billion needed to research how to adapt to global warming. $100 billion.
Wow.
We're in the wrong business.
Yeah, no kidding. $100 billion. Yeah. That's in the report. That's black and white.
Yeah, the New York Times actually reported. Here we go. Let me see what the Times
and
had.
Nobody sees this as a scam.
No one cares.
It just makes nothing but.
Here, I'm reading from the New York Times. The $100 billion figure included in the 2,500-page main report was removed from a 48-page executive summary to be read by the world's top political leaders. It was among the most significant changes made, as the summary underwent final review during an editing session of several days in Yokohama. The edit came after several rich countries, including the United States, raised questions about the language, according to several people who were in the room at the time but did not wish to be identified because the negotiations were private. This is a bunch of scientists in secret meetings.
Wow.
The language is contentious because poor countries are expected to renew their demand for aid this September in New York at a summit meeting of world leaders.
Yeah, they're not getting any of that.
No, of course not. And the scientists are like, fuck those guys. We want the $100 billion. Don't give it to some brown people.
Yeah.
This is for us. This is our money. We spend all this time writing these reports, and then we're going to have these sand bunnies take our money? I don't think so. This is a scam of the highest magnitude, and everybody's in on it. People like Charlie Rose, they're so into it that he doesn't even realize what the fuck he's saying.
Beyond leadership, which is an important and essential fact, what else has to happen to create the kind of urgency and fear that's a call to action?
I mean, really? What do we need to do to scare people? That's what he's saying.
Is that what play that clip again? That's astonishing.
That's literally what he's saying.
Beyond
that's
leadership,
exactly what he said.
Which is an important and essential fact. What else has to happen to create the kind of urgency and fear that's a call to action?
Let me give you an example. Here's Brian Williams on NBC. He doesn't ask the questions. He's a good soldier. He's got the memo. He's on board.
On our broadcast tonight, dire warning. The prediction tonight that climate change could destabilize human society. The American cities under threat, along with food and water supplies. Good evening. The world has never been spoken to quite this way. We've never been warned like this before, all of us, about climate change, nor have so many countries agreed quite this much on the clear and present danger it represents. Here is the takeaway. Unless the world changes course quickly and dramatically, the fundamental systems that support human civilization are at risk. This is all coming from the UN, and the evidence is convincing enough, in part because so many nations have agreed with these findings, that it will hit home across this country, especially in those population areas where people may need to be on the move faster than they first thought.
Shut up already. It's science.
There is no escape, people. You're all fucked. You're going to die.
This is... and still the general population is going, hey, have they found that plane yet?
Catch it in a sweet spot. Make him have to make a decision maker with the basketball. And that gives, I think, you an opportunity to rotate and also contest shots.
Right in the lane and both right. Trying to get you caught on the board, but they're too
The obvious threat to untold numbers of citizens, and because of the crisis which is even now developing, this radio station will remain on the air day and night. This station and hundreds of other radio and TV stations throughout this part of the country are pooling their resources through an emergency network hookup to keep you informed of all developments.
The ghost and the darkness have come.
He's here.
Thanks for listening to The Golden Show. All thoughts and opinions are solely that of the host, guests, and sources, and is only to keep free thought alive. Golden Show, earlymorningmob.com.
Yeah, what are you talking about? 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 All that talking like this, like that, all day in your hood. Golden shows, golden roads, strobe lights, laser lights, look at my gold, should have been tonight, apple shit, one more, hold it up, no you said, we're talking like this, talking like that, we're talking, Golden Debate Show, Golden Debate Show, Golden Debate Show, we like this, we're talking hood, draw the line, MC better talk with your chat, you know we're coming out the best, Golden Show, Golden Robes, Golden Boss, Golden Strokes, Golden... Wait,